Hi everyone, my name is Marcy Leon. I am the adoption supervisor at Bethany Christian Services here in Rapid City. Um, I am glad that you can join us in this different kind of way today to learn about human development and attachment. A little bit about me. I've been in adoption now for, I think it's almost 11 years now. In different various roles. So I've gotten to experience really all different sides of the adoption journey. And I'm excited to have you part of this training that you're going through now, and excited to deliver some of this information as well. Hopefully you'll find it informational and applicable to your journey with adoption. So let's get started. We're going to do human development, and then in a second part, we're going to talk about attachment. Human development is going to kind of be a little bit more like brain development, with a taste of what that looks like with human development. So we're going to dive in a little bit of Science 101 for everyone. And I'm a social worker. I'm not a scientist, but hopefully I can deliver this information well, and we all learn a little something while we're going through this. So let's get started here. If I can change my screen. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about the human brain a little bit. There are 100 billion neurons in with quadrillion connections in the human brain, starting even before birth. So at about 5 weeks of pregnancy, all of this stuff is starting to develop in the baby's brain. In the first trimester, this continues and it develops until about age 25 to 30 years old, depending on your development and depending on whether you are a female or a male. So we have billions and billions and billions of these neurons waiting for connections. And when our brains are in a healthy, nurturing environment, these connections within the brain grow at a tremendous rate. There's nothing else on earth that grows as fast. It's quite amazing. But from conception till about age 2 or 3, the brain is considered to be highly plastic. So when new information is introduced, it makes new pathways in the brain, and it's built at a very fast speed. The brain will create itself in accordance with the environment that it's in. So like I said before, if we're in a nurturing, healthy environment, the brain can grow pretty rapidly and build a lot of new connections quickly within their from conception to first 3 years of life outside the womb. But lack of stimulating or nurturing environments will hinder those connections, and the brain just simply will not grow as quickly. It would be very difficult to even rebuild some of those areas in the brain if it experiences neglect or trauma. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's not impossible to make these reconnections, but it's very intentional when we need to do so. So let's see if we can move on here to the next slide. Here we go. So the brain, the developing brain. There are 4 main parts of the developing brain, according to Dr. Bruce Perry. I'm going to be referencing him a lot, and I do encourage you to go to YouTube and take a look at his YouTube videos that he has, or check out some of his books. Is very informational. He is one of the most informational doctors that we have on the developing brain of a child and childhood trauma and how they correlate. So here he presents these 4 layers to the brain. The first is the brainstem, and these develop in sequence. So once the brainstem develops, then it gives way for the encephalon cerebrum, yep, I'm a social worker, to develop. Then it goes into the limbic, and then it goes into the cortex. And these are the parts of the brain that are developing from age I'm sorry, from conception up until age 25 to 30 years old, depending on if the brain was being developed in a healthy environment or not. So let's break this down, right? Let's figure out what this looks like. So our brainstem area, that is just our basic human, animalistic, if you would, type functions. So these are the main functions of our body. It keeps our body temperature, our heart rate, our blood pressure. A lot of people refer to it as the reptilian brain. It's the place in the brain that is like with the amygdala, which is developed toward the brainstem as well. It has our flight, fight, fawn responses. So just the basics. So if a car's coming at you, you don't stop and say, I wonder what I should do in this circumstance. Let me think about that. No, we just jump out of the way, right? This is the part of the brain that's going to save us in those stressful situations that arise. So the diencephalon is the part of the brain that regulates appetite, sleep, arousal. That's going to be sorry, lost my spot there. Yeah, that's going to be that part of the brain that regulates those types of human functionings. Once that's developed, then we're going to go into the limbic area of the brain. That's going to regulate our emotional reactivity, sexual behavior, and so forth. And then from there into the cortex, and that's the thinking part of our brain. And that is the part of our brain that we develop last. So it takes a little bit of time for that. Remember, we're going up to 25 to 30 years old. So it takes a little bit of time to get to that part. So what does that look like in real life, right? So an example in an adult is I'm at work and I'm in a conference meeting and my boss says something insulting to me in front of everybody, in front of the team, and it really embarrasses me. So how does that go through my brain, right? What is that going to look like? So at first I'm going my heart rate might rise. You might feel your heartbeat a little bit faster. Then I would probably feel like my hands are getting sweaty or a little nervous. I might flow into some feelings of anger, which we're in the limbic part of the brain now. And then I'm going to get to the cortex part and say, what in the world? What just happened? And what can I do about this? And how can I resolve whatever conflict we might have? And that's that thinking part of the brain. So for a kid, remember, we're developing this from conception until 25 to 30. So for a kid, it's going to look a little bit different, right? So let's say my 2-year-old's going to touch the plug on the wall. And I say to my little 2-year-old, no, don't touch that. That's owie. Well, they might get really mad, right? So they're going to start out probably at a heart racing or, their body temperature might raise because they're starting to get flustered. Then they're going to maybe clench their fist as a physical reaction. They might be experiencing frustration or anger, even though they don't know what the names are for those yet. And a lot of times, most of the time, I'd say, it's that 2-year-olds do not get to the point where they go, I wonder why mom said that. Yeah, maybe that isn't safe that I touch that. So they don't quite get all the way to the thinking stage yet. We're kind of lucky if we get to the limbic stage. So just kind of keeping that in mind as we continue forward looking at these developing brains of children. We're going to move forward here into, move me over a little bit, into the 5 areas of human development. We have, physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and moral development as we age. So same thing from in the womb through 25 to 30 years old, we are developing these different parts of us. When a child experiences trauma, however, some of these can be developed inconsistently. So what does that look like, right? So you might meet a child that's 10 years old, physically, maybe 25 years old cognitively. They really think things through beyond what their age should allow. Maybe they're 6 years old emotionally, though. They don't handle emotions very well. And then maybe 8 years old socially, kind of somewhere close, but not quite there yet. And maybe 7 to 9 years old morally. So we're kind of all over the spectrum when it comes to children coming from hard places. However, a child that is developed in a nurturing, caring, loving environment, who's built a secure attachment with their caregiver, would develop these more at a consistent rate. So we're going to move from there into, let's see if it lets me. We're going to move from there into, oh, come on. There we go. 6 core strengths. This is going back to something that Dr. Bruce Perry also talks about extensively on his YouTube videos, so I really suggest that you take a look at those. But he talks about the 6 core strengths, and they are correlated with those 5 development areas. So these also, like brain development, build upon each other. So first we have attachment, and after attachment builds, then we can build regulation, and then we can build affiliation, then we can build attunement, then we can build tolerance, and on to respect. But what are these, right? So let's talk a little bit about that a second. My papers here. What is attachment, right? So that's the capacity for us to build and maintain healthy emotional bonds with our caregiver, those closest to us, and then eventually into outside relationships. A child who struggles with this might have a hard time making friends, might have a hard time trusting adults, might show little empathy to others. Self-regulation, so that's that next one. After we've built some type of attachment, doesn't have to be a healthy attachment, but some type of attachment, we will move into regulation, self-regulation more specifically. That's the ability to notice and control our primary urges, such as hunger and sleep, feelings of frustration, anger, frustration too, and fear. Developing and maintaining this strength is a lifelong process. So even us adults are still trying to sometimes self-regulate if we are getting heated or upset or frustrated, or it's causing some type of emotion for us. We are looking to attempt to regulate that as well, right? So this in a child who has experienced some type of trauma, they might not have that ability to self-regulate, so you're going to see some more negative behaviors instead. That's how they're going to communicate their issue with whatever they're feeling. So they're going to have a hard time expressing that. It'll come out more as a behavior. They'd be reactive, maybe be quite immature, impressionable, maybe easily overwhelmed as well. So from regulation, we'd move into affiliation. Affiliation is the capacity to join others and contribute to a group. A child that's struggling, however, would be afraid to do so, would have some trust issues happening there. They they may suffer some self-fulfilling prophecies. So like, I'm never going to be good at this, and then they aren't because they self-sabotage. Again, struggling to build friendships is a strong one with affiliation as well, the inability to join a group. Then attunement is recognizing the needs, interests, and strengths and values of others. This is just the recognition of others having those traits. A child who struggles with this may show some prejudice towards others. They might judge others quickly. They can be pretty destructive at times, pretty judgmental. Tolerance is the capacity to understand and accept how others are different from you. So we're not just noticing it, we're accepting of it.